Welcome to Positive Philter with your host, Philip Wilkerson, a podcast that focuses on friends, family, health, and career, with a little self-help along the way. Please join me in this journey for self-improvement, and I hope what I have to share will make you a better person, thus making the world a better place. I hope you enjoy the show. I hope you enjoy the show. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Philip Wilkerson back with another episode of Positive Philter. I'm joined by a special guest. Everyone's a special guest. I'm joined by my man, Quentin. Now, you know me, I'm the most random person you ever meet. And I would say that this is my JMU spirit animal, separated by, I think, over a decade in age. I'm going to date myself. But I met this young brother at the Alpha Academy, and just in a brief conversation and the positive pettiness that this brother has, positive and petty, as you know, I knew we were going to hit it off, and we did. And our paths have crossed and intertwined. He goes to the best school in the state of Virginia. No, not Mason, and I know I'm probably gonna get a lot of flack for that. JMU, shout out to the Duke Dogs. But before I get into the episode and we get into this topic about young leadership, Quentin, go ahead and introduce yourself to the listeners.
Thank you, Phil. So my name is Quentin Canada. I am currently an MBA student at James Madison University. I did go to JMU for undergrad as well, and I got my Bachelor's of Science in Intelligence Analysis. I currently work with CGI Federal as a business analyst doing some consulting work. And like Phil said, I met him at the Alpha Leadership Academy. Like he said, giving some positive pettiness, a little shade here and there. And since then, you know, even in Vegas, we met up there, was some positive pettiness.
Yeah.
So Phil has hit me up, and we're talking about young leadership today. So just to give a quick background of who I am and what I do and have done. I currently serve as an advisor for two chapters of Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated, which is, of course, Phil and I's frat, the greatest frat in the world. I serve as an advisor for University of Virginia and James Madison University, which is where I crossed. On top of that, I have served as a two-term chapter president, a chapter dean, worked with our regional staff as an associate chief of staff for a year, associate director of College Brothers Affairs. I don't even know where else to go.
Keep going. I mean, he's doing all kinds of stuff.
He's all over. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's other things too on campus. I mean, like, I think you even affiliated with like NAACP at
NAACP,
all kinds of stuff. Just, you know, he's just involved. like he's doing everything. Yeah. And I would like to say, shout out to this dude. He obviously is my pro fight. He already has like a life membership. Like how old are you?
I'm 24. I got my life membership at 22.
Yeah, at 22. And we can talk about that in the story about how that goes. But obviously, it was connected to leadership. And my GoFundMe for mine is in the show notes. Not really. They told me not to do that. But I did particularly reach out specifically about young leadership is because one of the things that really inspired me about meeting you is that, you know, certain people think that leadership is something that is equated to age and experience. Mm-hmm. And what I've learned as you said, at 22 years old, is that yes, leadership is attached to experiences, which you have garnered, mm-hmm. Yeah. But it's not age. It's more like just getting involved. So mm-hmm. Before we go, and we did a little different. We got some questions from Instagram. Before we go into that, maybe before we go into the questions, maybe speak upon how you viewed leadership at your young age, and just maybe ramping up when you went to mm-hmm. college. Did you already start saying, like, because I met another young brother, a Boom. He was already mm-hmm. like, when I went to college my freshman year, I've already started to, like, he was already like actively saying, like, I'm going to do this, doing this. Mm-hmm. Like, he was really going at it. Was that your same mindset when you entered undergrad?
It's weird for me. Coming into college, I didn't really have a thought process about leadership. I was just in the mindset of doing things to get them done. And before I went to college, I was really active in church. And I was doing anything and everything that I could there. I was honestly at church 4 to 5 times a week, out of 7 days. And that was choir practice, that was drama rehearsal, that was Sunday schools. And I say all of that because I was hoping to lead and bring forth change with my age demographic. Typically younger kids or teenagers, they're not really too invested in church most of the time. So I think that's where my journey to leadership began. And then again, once I got to JMU, I wasn't really expecting to become a leader. It was just like, I think these things need to be done and could be done better.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's kind of what my journey to leadership has been. Not to say that, leaders always have things that they're doing wrong, but when you're in a system itself, you can't always see the flaws, and you need an outside perspective sometimes to bring in some change and some new thoughts.
I like that idea because I think mine is similar. I think that I would say now I could definitively say I am a leader, but I'm more like the leader by happenstance. And it was and I think mainly it was the action part. Like I just like doing. I was like I'll just try. It was more idea based, and then people are like, "Oh, we like your ideas. Can you show me how to do it?" I was like, "Oh, okay." And then I'm like showing people, and that's leading, as opposed to more like a delegation of tasks. So I think people have different mindsets of how they view leader. I think if I could say I'm a servant leader, also I'm gonna say I'm a leader by happenstance. Like I wake up one day and I was like, oh, I'm in a position of leadership. Someone asked me to do something. I said, okay, that was mine. It was like, ask me to do something. I was like, sure, I'll do it. Other people are more like, oh, I see a position, I'm going to run for it, and those different things. But I think we kind of align on that. So like, for instance, when you started doing like particularly action-oriented things your freshman year, did you start, was it already immediate when you hit the campus that people were already starting to like ask you to do more, or you would get just like when I was saying ask you to do more, like, for me, like now that people quote unquote view me as a leader, opportunities are coming to me. I didn't even know some of these things. They're like, I didn't even know the process of voting for certain things. People come to me with opportunities. Is that kind of your experience, or you were still seeking things?
I think my freshman year, I was seeking opportunities more so. And it started honestly with the contemporary gospel singers at JMU.
Oh yeah,
I was just a regular member my first year, and then someone actually nominated me for, I think it was secretary. I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then, and then from there, people wanted to nominate me for Students Minority Outreach exec. What else? Middle School Leadership Academy. So it was just like after that one little like start, it just ignited an entire fire. And then, like you did say, after you're so involved, people tend to come back to you and want you to lead more because they've seen your skills. So it turned out, I think it was my senior year, after developing this long resume of leadership at JMU and in Alpha, I think the President Alger, he's the current president of JMU, like by name, wanted me to be on a committee for inclusion on campus climate. It was a task force, PW always love task force, but
I love it. That's definitely when you at a predominantly white institution, or or just in general where you are the sole Black man in many spaces. If you're a hardworking, high-achieving Black male, you will be on a committee of some sort. Like,
absolutely.
And you're like, okay, but it's, I don't know. I think what I was telling someone earlier, which is weird, is that I think eventually reputation and your work ethic does the work out there in the world.
Yes.
Like, for instance, I would say something like, investing in your rep or investing in yourself networking wise, is that like, now, when you start building a base, your name is in other people's mouths, good or bad, but hopefully good, that like literally you'll start getting people say, oh, you came up as a suggested person. And I was like, I don't even know who you are. Like, I've gotten a few of those so far during COVID. I was like, people were reaching out to me in email saying, "Oh, I heard about you in some professional organization.
Yep.
Would you like to?" And I've got to learn. This is me being transparent on the podcast. It feels good. I haven't said no, and I'm learning how to say no now because I'm going to stretch myself too thin. But it's just like randomly, like you're like, who are these people? Like, who is this? And you realize that the work is doing out there in the world.
Yeah, and learning to say no, it is difficult. It sounds really easy in theory, but in practice, it's so hard because one, you don't want to let anybody down. You don't want to feel like your reputation, your name, your brand is being tarnished because you didn't accept a certain position. Actually, my company, I've been with them for about a little over 2 years now. They actually told us when we were doing our first week of training, never say no to a new opportunity. And I understand it, but sometimes we have so much on our plates already. Adding something new or doing something new is very difficult to handle and manage, especially when you have no one really guiding you. As young leaders, we often, sometimes we're first generation college students or first generation, to do a lot of things. Not having someone as a sounding board or, just to bounce ideas off of, it's difficult to just say yes to everything.
Or else it feels good. I ain't gonna lie. It strokes your ego. It also makes you feel really good. And then additionally, I think what I've also noticed is that's the one scary part is that you think that because that opportunity was presented, if I say no, will it not be presented in the future? Shout out to one of my mentors. She said that, like, honestly, if you do start saying no and become picky, it makes you more desirable. Like, because people are like, oh, wow, like, really? You said no to me? Like you kind of start getting recruited. It's almost like you're the, so you got to be kind of like
more selective.
Yeah, you drive up your demand by being more selective because then they're like, oh, okay, now. Like, so I haven't thought about that, but that's an interesting thing. That's crazy. Do you want to get in these questions or you want to just keep on,
Let's get into questions. It's a bunch of them. I don't know if
I know we got a bunch of them. I don't know. We're going to get all of these. But so, we I guess it was a hot topic. People want to, especially these people want to know about leadership, but also young leadership. And so we threw out there on Instagram, the grams, and we said, shoot us some questions. And obviously I didn't know that Quentin is the most popular person at JMU. So you got like 10,000 questions. So maybe we'll go through my 2 questions first. We'll go through mine and then we'll just shoot it. So this is my boy Hillard. I definitely got to hit him. He said, what do you feel is the most challenging part of being in a leadership role? I was saying, go ahead. You go first.
That's tough. That's a good question. I don't even know if I can just limit it to one, but I will say the first thing that came to my mind was always having the eyes on you.
That was my thing.
Yeah, it's just tough because, we all want to, live our lives. Me particularly, I'm a very private person. I don't really tell a lot of people, including family, like what I'm doing all the time. So it's tough when, you're at a party, you just want to have a good time, maybe enjoy a few drinks, and people have their phones out and they're looking at you, or they're like, oh, did you see what so-and-so did? And it's like, well, let them live their lives. We're all people. Yes. We all make mistakes. Things happen. But having all eyes on you at all times, again, because it's your reputation, your brand, is always being presented. Even if it's attached to an organization specifically, the way I've always viewed it and I was taught, in terms of Alpha, you're always wearing your letters, even when you're not wearing them. Even when your lanyard's off, you're in all white or whatever. They're like, oh, that's so-and-so, the Alpha.
The Alpha, that's what I was about to say. Yep. Yeah.
So I think, for me, that's the most difficult thing.
There you go, spirit animal. But I was going to add another layer is about the as you move up, the risk reward. I guess risk reward is not the right word, but you know what I meant. The margin for error. That's what it is. Yes. The margin for error is a lot steeper, and I don't know. Sometimes people are like, they're like, yo, this is so attractive. And I was like, I don't know, man. I kind of want to be hood famous. I don't want to be, because, it is you could say, oh, that Bama brush with Crest. Oh, no. Crest is and then they'll go into how maybe they are that one brand that you bought that's toothpaste from has a a factory
Mm-hmm.
with child worker. Like you literally every
Yeah.
single thing to how you brush your teeth or how you walk or
Yep.
what music you listen to or how you dance. Like you're under a microscope.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I'm not a private person, I'm outgoing. And so I think that is one of the things that is scary about leadership is that the margin for error to be your authentic self, but at the same time make mistakes. When you're under a microscope, you definitely have to, as you said, think about optics of all things, right? Like you can't just go into a room and introduce yourself a certain way or talk a certain way, because as you could say, like you're not only representing yourself now. When you become a leader, you represent the team underneath you. You represent the organization that you work for or a part of, a volunteer organization. And so therefore you have to think about, like, as I enter spaces, how do I like make sure that I uphold certain values and things? And, people make mistakes. And I think normally you said it just as best in the younger generation. We have cell phones and we have social media.
Social media is the death.
I bet back in the 1920s, you could like literally live a whole life and people wouldn't know anything. We read these biographies about people that have like crazy lives. But now, if you go out there, someone catch you on their smartphone, it's very like instant and it's crazy. So I think that would be, brand, not just brand management, but just optics under the microscope. I'm just going to jump around. That was the same one. What is the hardest part of a leader's job? What do you think is the hardest part of a leader's job? I think that's separate in my mind.
I think for me, it's fairly similar, but I think learning the difference between leadership and management.
Oh, speak on it.
Leaders are typically ones that are like, how can we do this together? Managers are typically ones that are, you need to get this done. And at times there are times in leadership where you have to say, you all need to get this done, because delegation is a part of leadership. But if your entire leadership role capacity is built on demanding of others, you are a manager or a babysitter. You're not a leader.
Taskmaster. I agree with that. I've had many people, this is the part with a little bit of shade, but I had many taskmasters in my past. And I think I've had many leaders, great leaders. And I think you said it just best. A leader is someone that gets in the trenches, does it as well. But at the same time, they also have to trust, like, well, I gave you something to do as a delegation. And I'm stretched I'm stretched so far that I can't babysit you. I gotta really gotta hope and trust and have faith that you get things done, because I can't babysit. I gotta get other people to do things. So I think that I've also noticed that one of the hardest parts of things, especially for doers such as myself, is that when you're working in a group projects, you know what I'm saying, where you literally I'm saying is like, you can't do it all, and you have to really have this faith in someone else to do their role and their job. And sometimes in the world, people don't get what they need to get done. And, I've been on the other side where I'm in the group project where I didn't get what I was supposed to get done. But it's like literally like, like I cannot move on to step B until I knew that someone did their part. So that is a very hard part when you have a lot of things going on and you really have to give faith to someone else to get what they're doing and not babysit them.
That trust in somebody else to do their job is very vital. You hit that on the head.
Yeah, and that's crazy. And you know that. We know that, man. and then you do those anonymous group reviews, and you just shade that person. Homeboy didn't do his work.
Give them the lowest grade of review possible. Absolutely.
Have you done that before? I've never done that because I was too empathetic. I'd be like, oh no. I was like, man, he just broke up with his girlfriend. I was like, I'm like, at least give him a B, please. I ain't gonna totally throw him under the bus. You know what I'm saying?
I'm cutthroat. If you weren't pulling your weight, I'm gonna let the professor know if there's not a review, or if it's in a review, I'm gonna we had to complete the work on Daniel's behalf. I think I did that this past year. We're in grad school.
Yeah.
We all
Yeah.
have jobs working full time. Just do your share. If you can't do it, let us know. Don't just, we're not going to get on Google Docs and see that your part isn't done an hour before the assignment.
Yo, they you talk about Google Docs where you can see everyone working.
Yeah, and you can see what everyone's done.
You see the Bama's line that still stays still. Did he log
real
in?
time.
He got anonymous Fox.
Yep.
Oh man, that is hard though.
If I'm doing group work, we make sure that we assign, okay, you're gonna have the introduction, Catherine. Daniel, you're gonna have the conclusion 3 days later. Daniel, the conclusion's not done.
Yeah, that's not, and you can't do nothing about it. And then you do it, but then you end up just doing it. That's one of my things too.
Yeah.
I'm the type of person, eventually, rather than crashing and burning, I'll just do it. Which I don't know if that's a great thing. I don't know. I don't have the solution. This is being honest. I don't have if that's better or to like just not do it and say he was supposed to do it. But for me, I'd rather just do it and complete it and not fail completely than
absolutely.
I don't know. It's just me. I can't let us all crash and burn. So this is a really good one. He said, "What is your favorite books on leadership that you would recommend?" I don't have a favorite, but I have a current.
You can go first.
Right now, currently, I'm reading Dare to Lead by Brene Brown.
I met her.
And let me use reading loosely. I'm listening on audiobook because I don't read. I think everyone should actually read or consume books, but I like Audible because I like to walk and listen. I'm not very, as you can see, I don't stand still. I'm actually moving a lot in this chair. But Dare to Lead is a really good one about showing up as a leader, being authentic, vulnerable. But then she also mixes in some real, like, not just like how to use vulnerability, not strategically, but like, don't just say, oh, I can't, like you be your true self as a leader, but it still has some leadership qualities about some of those things about showing up, taking accountability, even as yourself. It's a great book so far. Obviously Brene Brown is doing something right. She's always on Oprah and got like one of the most listened to TED Talks. So that's my current recommendation. I don't have an all-time favorite. I kind of just listen to random books on Audible all the time, but that's mine right now at this current moment.
I'll give two. One is Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. And Malcolm Gladwell in general, all of his work is really good. I'm like Phil though. I don't really like to read a lot. I prefer a podcast or an audiobook, just because I can't just sit here and like read. Audio will catch my attention, but Tipping Point. The other one is I think it's called Servant of the People. We got that one at Alpha Leadership Academy.
Oh yeah, I got to read that. I still have it somewhere. That's a good one.
Again, I didn't finish reading it, but it does give a lot of good background and detail on leadership, servant leadership specifically. And it gives some perspective of like a Black perspective a little bit too, which I really enjoyed when I was reading through it.
Yeah, what's that mean? And when you say I like, maybe go dive in, we can pivot, whatever. What it meant by the Black experience in the leadership?
Well, Black leadership is different, I'd say, than the typical definition of leadership, because at least in my experiences, because I have gone to a predominantly white institution, that microscope that we're always under is magnified times 10, and we are expected to do so much more. And often we're overlooked for the work that we do. So
overlooked by who? By what do you say? By your peers, other Black people, or
not by peers. I say peers are typically good at giving credit and showing love. I'd say more administration typically overlook the work that we do until there's some kind of, let's call it a crisis. Like right now, of course, a lot of universities are facing crises as it relates to Black Lives Matter and the treatment of Black and other people of color on campuses. A lot of the work that students were doing years before this was overlooked, but now that all of the social justice movements are happening, the university is now re-examining what they can do, what they should have been doing. But what they should have been doing years ago was listening to the experiences of Black people and people of color.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I wouldn't know about. I mean, not say I wouldn't know. I think that, and I haven't read that book, but I think a lot of the leadership for Black people is not just like leadership in regards to money
Mm-hmm.
and bottom dollar and profit. A lot of the leadership that's linked to Black people is actually for like rights, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So like, so I don't know if it has a deeper meaning. Like, you know, like let's say for instance, okay, you know, Fortune 500 company, guy like that, he's doing his leadership stuff. At the end of the day, it's because of profits, and but
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the leadership that's been tied to, not particularly, but the Black leaders that we look up to was leadership in the face of overt oppression.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the stakes were higher. I think that's what you know, like, and I don't know how. I mean, this is me just kind of freestyling it a little bit, but thinking about it, it was like that. I think that is a scarier type of leadership.
Yeah.
You know, as in like, you know, the civil rights leaders that we look up to, is that they're leading people to do systematic change,
Mm-hmm.
where the failure is not you losing profit. The failure in this instance is not like you go bankrupt. The failure is that a legislation or a policy doesn't change, or the failure is that like what you're trying to do doesn't happen. And actually also a failure or the risk is not just losing money, but people actually got hurt. You know, like that's, you know, so that I think that definitely shifts a little bit of that leadership journey. Is like, you know, how do I become a leader or speak up for someone when in actuality, the things I'm trying to get people to convince them to do, let's say we're, you know, I'm just saying Martin Luther King, for instance, he's just saying like, I need you to get on board for this, you know, X, Y, and Z. But also I know that if you get on board with this, we're going to get sprayed with water hoses and dogs are going to bite you. Are you cool with that, everybody? And everyone's like, yeah, like that's a really hard thing to lead people into, you know, like that's not like, oh, you're just gonna go broke, or, you know, follow me into this company, you might lose your job, or no, like you might actually get hurt. And I always think about those random things like that. When I think of those things, is like, how do you lead people in certain things where it's not linked to their pockets, it's linked to their livelihood,
their lives.
Their livelihood, and to convince them wholeheartedly that this is something that you should have faith in, and it's going to work, or it's going to change something, or, you know, believe in it. Like, you really, you know, follow me. If we do this, we're hopefully going to make a difference. And maybe they don't see that it's no difference. They don't see that it's different 5 years from now or 10 years from now. I think that's a scary leadership. And
it's also hard I'll go off of one thing that you said about MLK. I'm thinking of C.T. Vivian working with the sit-ins during the civil rights movements. Students had to get trained because you're gonna get water, drinks, food thrown at you, and you're supposed to just sit there and take it. You're gonna get pepper spray, like you said, hosed, potentially beaten. You have to sit there. They practice nonviolence, and that is extremely great for them. I don't think I would be the type to do that. I'd have to resist a little, fight back. But it's also hard because we're fighting for something that other classes and groups of people have had for decades. So when they are privileged and they don't really understand the struggles that, you know, we may face. So it's hard to say we want equal rights or we want equity, but it's like, no, this law here says that you guys are equal under this. But it's like, okay, yes, it says this, but we aren't treated this way. Our experiences don't say that we are equal. So it's hard to convince others that don't understand the point when they have quote unquote facts or evidence saying that we are equal. That's just me rambling.
That's a definitely. So these are different things about leadership too. Is about buy-in, buy-in not only from people of color, but also just people in general. Yes. And also, I think it's also just. I don't know. We're just kind of. That's another hard part about leadership. I think, and it's another tangent about a hard part. I think a hard part about leadership that I'm understanding and I'm seeing is stakeholder buy-in, but also buy-in from people that don't have the same experience. That is harder. Like I could say, hey, Quentin, you know, I want to do this and we have very similar values, and the buy-in for you to follow me or to work with me might be less challenging because you'd be like, okay, yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But how do you convince someone of very different experiences to buy in and follow, quote unquote, follow your lead, or, you know, in those aspects when they have totally different experiences, or as you say, they can't see it on paper. It's like, wow, like, but on paper,
Mm-hmm.
it looks like this. So I think in general, just all kinds of things when you work in diverse groups and diversity is, I think buy-in is a really hard aspect of leadership, but buy-in across different identity groups that have different worldviews and different perspectives. How do you convince them? And not to say like, oh, like my way is the best way, but just also in general, like why that maybe you have a case, and why, whether that's related to, funding, or related to, just straight up leadership roles and convincing.
Yeah.
I think that's something I'm learning too, is like, how do you bring evidence across experiences to show that there should be some buy-in? Man, that's crazy, man. That's crazy, man. We're doing all kinds of things on this. This leadership one, that's a good topic. We're leaders. I got one. How do you continue leading others once you have gained a group? I think that's kind of like speaking upon momentum. How do you build upon that?
How do you?
Or maybe even, I don't know, that's the only thing she said, but like maybe that's also thinking like, does that mean like as you develop a group or a following, do you kind of re-examine whether you need to grow and get more of a following, or just kind of just stick where you are? How do you continue? Like, what's the goal? Is a leader supposed to have a lot of followers or quality followers?
I don't really think a leader needs to have a lot of followers. I think it's more so the quality. And not to say that you can't have both, but I think that you need to typically, in every case is different depending on your group, your organization, family, whatever. You need to cater to the needs of the least, I'll say. So if, like, let's say I don't even know how to give an example for this. Wow.
Well, maybe think of an example, and I'm trying to think about it too. It's like a lot of things, formal structure organizations are membership based. So like you can also focus on the quality of the people here, or at the end of the day, like you need to grow too. You know what I'm saying? Wink, wink, fraternities or any membership. I'm saying like, it's a balance, right? How do you continue to grow and yield normal growth, but at the same time, like, focus on, as you say, the least or the needs of the people? I don't know. I don't have the answers, but I would say that one of the troubles that I've learned is that growing, as you say, does not always equal success, right? Like growing and getting 50 people when you haven't really focused on the 25 that you already have. Yes, you doubled in size, but did you really focus, as you said, on the needs of the people?
And that type of leadership, it seems inorganic. It seems like you're leading just to have that following. I think of a lot of people that are the clout chasers on social media now. They're trying to get following just to have a following or to create a name for themselves. But once that name is created for yourself, what are you doing? What have you given back to the people?
How do you listen to the lowest, or quote unquote, what is the lowest?
The least or the lowest is just the person, I'll say in this one instance, is the person that may be struggling the most with whatever aspect of leadership or your organization it may be. So let's take it to fraternity because that's what I typically know the best, but you can apply this to any organization that you're in. Let's say that you have someone that is struggling with your minimum GPA requirement. All
there
right.
you go. Okay. Yeah.
Like they're right on that borderline. So it's like, okay, so what can we all do? Not just this one person. What can we all do to make sure that our academics are up to date or the best? Or, we're not reading our service recommendations. Community service, we got to focus on that. How can we all focus on bringing our hours monthly, weekly, yearly up? So I think that's what I think of when I think of the least. And I think what was important with what I said too was making the group's concerns or one person's concerns the entire group's, thinking as a unit and moving as a unit. So if one person is struggling with grades, hey, we're all struggling with grades right now then. I think that's one way to, I guess, address the least, because you need to make it a we problem, not a you problem.
Right. I like that. And I think that, there you go. I think Yeah, because like at the end of the day, and I think I agree with you. Is like there should be a balance between growing and obviously looking to the future and bandwidth, but then
Mhm.
how are you going to grow if the foundation is weak? Like
Yeah,
like why would you want to get to 50 if the 25 are not cohesive
yeah,
or
it
whatever?
doesn't work. It's going to
No,
collapse.
I don't know. You'll see it. I think you'll see it eventually. All right, so this one of the one of yours.
All right.
Um, Here we go. I like this. How do you become a leader in a workplace on areas such as diversity and inclusion?
Ooh, that is tough. I think in today's climate, it's a little more tough. I think a lot of companies, organizations in general, are focusing on diversity and inclusion. Um, but I think it starts with just creating the climate for it in a workplace. So most organizations will have some type of formal D&I, as I refer to it, set up. But if that doesn't exist, talk to a manager about it. Talk to your HR department if you have one about it. But then once it is set up, you can't just, all right, well, we have a D&I people we can go to if anything ever arises. Your D&I people need to be actively engaged teaching people because a lot of microaggressions or just covert racism, sexism, all of the isms and phobias happen
Mm-hmm.
in workplaces. And sometimes it's not because of the person and what they are meaning to say. Sometimes it's just pure ignorance. They may not know or understand. And, a lot of places will have those anti-harassment trainings, but people, if you can just click through them or watch a video,
Mm-hmm.
you're just going to click through it as fast as you can to get it over with.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, man, there's a lot that you could say about it, though.
I don't know. I think it's hard because I think it's, as you said, this in this time, it's a hot topic,
Hmm.
and I think it's. I'm not saying it's a fancy word. I think it's just hard because I think the urgency of it now has been put to the forefront
Hmm.
in regards to how organizations are working. Because I think a lot of people are fed up, and I think what
Yep.
is happening is that
Yep.
they are realizing, and this is, I hate to say this, but I think they're realizing the bottom dollar is that
Mm.
they're losing talent, or talent is going away, or I don't know. It's just like we have nothing else to think about because we're all in a pandemic. Now this is urgent when I think that a lot of these things that are ills of society and particularly the workplace have been around
Hmm.
forever.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just exacerbated because we have nothing else to pay attention to.
Hmm.
And so I don't know. I think that I'm glad that certain aspects of diversity and inclusion are getting more attention.
Hmm.
I'm glad. So like, why would I be mad about it? I just think that, as you say too, I hope it's authentic. I hope it's systemic change and not just like checking boxes during this pandemic.
Hmm.
And also don't hope that it's just a company, as you say, like, look, we got this guy. Now we got a DNI officer or something, like a position.
Yeah.
Check. Now we can. I really hope that it's like really just like uprooting how systems have been in
Hmm.
place. I'm I'm not I'm an optimistic person. I would
Yeah.
love to see how all these things that is going on in regards to naming schools and
Hmm.
programs and all these things. I love it right now for the surface value of what it is right now, like the optics. But I would love to see how this looks 5 years from now,
Hmm.
where it's not just the names on buildings or
Yep.
a special month program or some kind of like, kumbaya holding hands thing.
Yeah.
I like to see that, like maybe when you just really pull someone to the side, like really
Hmm.
pull someone that's a marginalized group to the side and ask them authentically what their experience is, and without without being prompted, they say, yeah, I feel really comfortable here. You know what I'm saying? Like, I
Yeah.
want to see the test when there is no, like, like a
Yep.
secret shopper, kind of thing, the secret shopper. Like, I would love to see the
Yeah.
secret shopper of racism and sexism and all those isms at a university when we just pull you to the side and say, yo, what can you be real? What's your experience here like
Mm-hmm.
at this school or this organization?
Yeah.
And without prompting and without like, oh, like this test is coming, someone authentically says, okay, while there's some
Mm-hmm.
flaws, X, Y, and Z, I think this company is doing
Yeah.
this place is trying.
Mm-hmm.
Without like, and you're like, okay, if someone can say that without like, I'm a secret shopper kind of thing, then I know that it's a real change. It's not just
Yeah.
for the public, like
For sure.
and for sure. And so
Yeah.
that's gonna be my test. I think I'm gonna do that, John. I think I'm gonna just randomly ask people that work in places like down the line in 5 years how they feel
Mm-hmm.
about a place, just and see if they like I gotcha. They're like, really? No, I'm just lying. Like I'm not really a diversity spy or defect. But like, I mean, that's the case, right? Like, how
Yeah.
can someone authentically talk about a place behind closed doors? And when there's really no cameras or nothing like that, is this
Mm-hmm.
person really feeling that their identity is respected at this
Yeah.
place or structure? And well, like I said, there's going to be things. No one's going to be perfect, but is there progress being made?
Yeah. And I think it kind of answers the question a little bit more. I think it starts within an organization or institution. You need to be having these conversations about diversity and inclusion, with each other. Let's say, if you're at a university or a school and let's say you're on some exec board or people in departments, or you can go to a person in a department where they can affect some change or bring up some topics. Just having a conversation is the first step. And after that, I know a lot of organizations at JMU were demanding things to be changed after having several conversations, weeks after weeks of just conversations. It's a little more drastic in this situation because the whole Black Lives Matter movement is still happening. So we needed a lot more expedient change. But sometimes in a workplace, it's not as pressing. But you do need to have conversations or education sessions so that when a change does happen, people aren't caught completely off guard and resistant to that change. Because typically as people, we are resistant to change no matter what. So just having a change that you don't even know or have thoughts about happen, see right in front of your eyes, it's like, whoa, what's going on? I don't like this. But when you have that conversation first and people are expecting it, then they'd be like, oh, I understand why this is happening. And
Yeah, I
that's how
like
you
that.
get it started.
Yeah, conversations. So we got one. His name Jarian. What's his name?
Jaren. It gotta be
Jaren.
Jaren.
Yeah, he got like an underscore. He said, "How do young leaders learn or lead to work with those who have opposite opinions?" And then he's got an elephant emoji and a horse. I'm assuming that's a delta and an iota. I'm not sure. A centaur. Is that what that means? Like different opinions?
It's a delta and iota. It's gotta be.
Or is that a donkey? Is that supposed to be Republican and Democrat? I
Oh,
don't
maybe it's
know.
supposed to be a donkey. That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
So how do you work with people with differing opinions?
I think so. In the most extreme case, you have to learn how to agree to disagree. I have learned that. I didn't understand it at first, but I have learned it because at a certain point, you're just arguing for argument's sake. Neither side is listening to what the other person says, so you have to call it quits, agree to disagree. But a lot of times it is, again, an education. You need to educate the other person on why you feel this way, why you think this way, why you work this way, etc. And, a lot of times that may not work. But it's just education and continue to educate and continue to work with them. I like to think a lot about what I'm doing in terms of organization and working with others as the democratic peace theory teaches. And it says that countries that know they need to work together in the future tend to have less conflicts because they know down the road, I'm going to have to work with you again. So I apply that to my relationships with people. I'm not going to, go out and create some conflict with others. Just for whatever sake it is, I'm going to be more likely to, I'll say, squash any beef, resolve any problems, because I may need you and you may need me, and I don't want any ill feelings or ill will towards me, and not just me, other people in my organization, because again, you're always writing your letter. So, oh, so-and-so in NAACP isn't, really nice to work with. We're not going to work with him again. And that actually happened to me at one point. A group on campus said, we're not going to do anything else with the alphas because of something that I did. So that's all I've got on that one.
I was thinking like, okay, like, I guess when we talk about political lines, or there's a difference between political ideologies of like certain baseline policies or ones that are like very disproportionately like infringing on the rights of other human beings. And we're not going to go on there, like taxes, like taxes ones, like, okay, like, I guess you're more fiscally, conservative, like, but there's also ones about like straight up rights, about human rights. But I think that another thing that I think about too is our political disagreement related to this job.
Yeah.
Now, when it's related to this job, maybe we're like politicians and we're trying to work on policy. Maybe that's when it's related. But if we're on a football field or something, who you believe in politically and who, like, just block the person, like block, like don't let me get like jacked up.
Yeah.
So I try to think about like, how do you have certain conversations, and is those conversations or things related to the task at hand?
And
so
I like
if
that.
If it's not, like, I just don't, like, honestly, I don't talk certain subjects with everyone I work with. I know we need to have a inclusive, but like, I think certain topics is things like, I really don't want to get into it. This one, like, sex, religion, money, and politics those are topics that I have different pockets of who I have conversations with. Like, you don't tell everyone your sexual business, with everybody. You don't tell everyone I feel like political business or mindset with everyone. You don't tell everyone how you spend money. And you also don't tell everyone what's going on in your home. So I think that with those different opinions, I think there's certain ways you can work with other people based on the task at hand, as long as the task is not related to those opinions.
Yeah, it's like a separating business from pleasure type of thing.
Yeah.
To work with you, I don't need to know about how you spend money. That's not important to me. I need to know, can you get your job done? And can I get mine done without some interference because of whatever you have going on? I think that's the thing. I think a lot of times we are often caught up in how other people live their lives. And sometimes, political views can get in the way if people are really extreme. But typically it's like, all right, I just need to work with you, and that's it. Just keep it business. You don't need to be friends with everyone you work with. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's hard. That's hard for the extrovert like me. I love having friends.
Yeah.
I also noticed that not everyone is meant to be your friend. And but for me, there was always this polarity is that if they're not my friend, then they hate me or they beef with me. No, there's also just lack of relationship. Like, we just don't have no relationship.
Yeah.
That's okay. Like, that's decent too. Like, there's no beef. There's no nothing. It's just that's a human being with their group. And so I've learned that over time is that you don't need to totally align with everyone you work with or lead. As long as you get, one, the job done, two, everyone is safe, and all those things. Like, you go ask someone that went to war if they cared about the political party of someone. I hope most guys, that's why the military guys be all like, oh, I had this guy, I don't care if he's a Trump. Because they're like, at the end of the day, I was just trying to get home. Like, so I think it really lends to the task at hand of, let's really focus on certain things. But at the same time, I'm not going to have this dude over for dinner.
Yeah.
Like, we're gonna have boundaries and separations of our roles. So we got a fellow podcaster that dropped a question, the Audacity Pod, and which is dope. You want to give her a shout out?
Yeah, shout out to Audacity Pod. That's actually my sister. It's Audacity Pod with Jaina Canada. So check her out. She's on all the major streaming platforms. She's on, of course, Spotify, Apple Music, Google Play, and there's another one. Yeah,
I'm gonna put that in the show notes. I'm gonna have to follow it too and subscribe. So here's a good one. how do you become a leader if you're not naturally one? And I'll let you go. You want to go first? Because I think I already have an opinion.
You can go first. Yeah, I'll let you go
Well,
first.
I think honestly, I don't think anyone's naturally a leader.
Yep.
Like, and let me rephrase. I don't think anyone naturally. Okay, let me rephrase, because as I learned, everyone is a leader in some aspects, shy or big. Like we had this stereotype that leaders are always out in the front, or the loud, the outspoken ones. But there's also leaders that don't talk. There's also leaders that you just follow because of their actions. So I feel like everyone has the potential to be a leader. I also don't think that I don't know. Even the person that, like, they wake up and I guess they want fame or whatever, I don't think anyone really has leadership in their DNA.
Yeah.
I think they have a certain aspect of excellence or commitment to something, and they're so good at it that people follow. So, like, for instance, like Michael Jordan, he had a commitment to basketball. He was so good at it, people followed him. A speaker, a public speaker, they're really good at communication, or someone that's really good at accounting. I think what happens is naturally people are skilled in other things, and leadership is attached to it. Like they're good at, like, whatever they want to be good at. They become so good at it. They excel at it so much that people naturally, that's the natural part. I think people naturally gravitate to them or ask them for advice or follow them. So I don't know, because I feel like leadership in its own core, it's not just, there's no like a real leadership skill by itself. I think it's really just like, I think leadership is just attached to other skills. And that's just my opinion.
Yeah. And I agree wholeheartedly with you. I was actually going to say the same thing. I think that there is a certain level of, like you said, skill or some kind of characteristic that you have associated with you that allows people to want to gravitate towards you. I think a lot of times it is charisma. Everyone is charismatic in their own way, whether you like that or not. But I think that's where it begins. And there are people that are not liked by the majority of people around the world that are still great leaders in their own right. This is going to be a very dark thing to say, but Hitler was charismatic enough, and I'm not even going to get into all of it, but to lead an army to do a lot of illegal things. And I don't want to say that he is a good leader in my definition, but he had enough charisma, he had enough power and drive to make people believe that what he was saying was true. And there, of course, there are better examples. You've got MLKs, you've got Kobe, LeBron.
And you said it. I think I even there was a PowerPoint, and Hitler was a bad one, is that the skills that people have could be linear to good or evil. And so if you put on there a leadership skill, I mean, Hitler, Stalin, Machiavelli, whatever the guy's name is, whatever, like there's a part where the leadership part took the dark turn where it was used to manipulate, right? Like, so there's two, right? Like, you can see the two-edged coin. There's motivate and inspire, and then there's manipulate and corrupt.
Yes.
And so the person that's doing it as a leader could do that. Like, as you said, and I know, like, he was a terrible person. Hitler, Stalin these are terrible people, but they had millions of people following them because of certain things. And I think what also goes into the core of a leader is the tool and the skills being used to a good or evil. And I really don't think, like, naturally, I mean, he wasn't good at stuff. I read history. He sucked at art. He was he was flunked out, and he wasn't really quote unquote smart. But then he just, like, took hold of what I believe was people's fear and manipulated people and capitalized on it. And other bad leaders have done that throughout the history of the world, where when you look at them on paper, they're not the most brilliant people. They're not the smartest people, but they learn these certain skills of manipulation and all those things. But then we also can look on the good side of people that, like, the same way, they're not the smartest people. but they learn how to inspire people. I don't know. Think of a positive. Let's flip it. I'm trying to think of someone
Michael Jordan. You got
cut from his basketball team.
Walt Disney. I don't really like to give him as an example.
Yeah.
You got people like Oprah. And people. And I think leadership too. We're typically seeing successful people as they are. I guess as they are older, but a lot of leaders and people that we like look up to and revere don't really always make it at a young age. You know.
No.
Like you said, Michael Jordan cut from the basketball team. Walt Disney and some of his like initial illustrations and ideas were shot down. So
Steve Jobs went broke.
Steve Jobs went broke. So yeah, there's a lot more to it than just what's right there in your face.
And I think we both understand is that they weren't naturally like no one looked at none of these people in elementary school and said, wow, that person is going to lead a nation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think many people, I think they either grew into leadership through failure or they grew into it through adversity or they grew into it through, I think a lot of leaders grow into their leadership is that they want to be so good at something.
Yes.
That was that part. They want to be so good at something.
Yes.
Unrelentingly good at something. And then people follow them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is where leaders, that's not the natural part. I think it's like they are so charged up to like, I want to be so good at this. And honestly, I think it's almost an inner thing. Like, I don't think they even care about an audience. Like they were like, I want to be so good at this for me. And then people like follow them. They're like, oh, you're good at this.
Yeah.
Like
everyone is interested in something. So if you, and a lot of times I like people because of the drive that they present to the world. And sometimes you just have to be relentless in your pursuit of your goal. Yeah. And people will love and appreciate that so much that they have no choice but to, at a minimum, give you the respect.
Yeah.
You may gain some followers or some mentees or some mentors or love from it, but at a minimum, you'll have that respect from them because you are so relentlessly pursuing whatever goal it is that you have.
Yeah. It's like, I think a byproduct. I think, honestly, what I'm thinking now is that leadership is a byproduct of chasing excellence. Mm-hmm. It's like naturally, like you chase excellence. You're not chasing leadership. No one chases leadership. No one, I mean, not no one, but not many people chase leadership. They chase excellence. They're like, I want to be so good at this. And then people are like, oh man, like I said, I'm gonna give that person respect. I'm gonna give that person dues. Mm-hmm. Or another thing is too, like you said it earlier, let me give people opportunities and ask them like, oh, I heard that you're really committed to this goal. Would you want to do this too? And then they pull you to another opportunity.
And it's weird. You did say something that I wanted to piggyback off of. You said pursuing leadership. And I feel like when people are pursuing leadership, they're often pursuing a position. And just because you have a position does not mean that you're going to be a leader, really, or a good leader at that. They don't always coincide.
Oh, yeah. Speak on that. Actually, I think you can go deeper on that because that's true.
Yeah. Let's say, I don't want to give this too much. I'll say at one point I had a job and I was working, it was fast food, and my manager, she was, I don't say about mid-30s or whatever, 30s, 40s, possibly. And of course, when you apply for a job, you have like your duties listed out for you, responsibilities that you're supposed to be doing. And it always has this little other duties as required or requested. But at a certain point, it's like, okay, well, what my manager specifically, I'm not going to give her name.
Please don't.
we and I say we as in like the other team members, and we're all high school students. We're all 16, 17 years old. We're doing everything to close the store at the end of the night. So we're, of course, cleaning it. We're doing everything from counting down the drawers, which we typically did, but we're also counting the money in the safe, which was specifically her job because, she only has to have the keys or the code to the safe. And when money went missing one time, it was like, all right, well, what happened? And they didn't go to us because it's not our job. They went to her and asked her. And of course, she didn't really know. So she got a little embezzlement. But all that to say, when you are in a position you need to be doing the duties at a minimum that you're assigned to.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Also, I was thinking like this too. It's like if you chase a position and once you get it, you're not settled and you're not satisfied.
Yeah.
So
it's like, oh, this is
okay,
cool.
Congrats, you got the position. But if you chase a certain excellence standard, I think that's transferable to anything. Because then like you still have that hunger. Like you didn't make it. Have you ever met someone that like I love this mindset when you meet someone that you look up to and you're like, man, I'm trying to be like you, big dog. And they're still like, I ain't nothing. You're like, Jesus.
Yeah.
And you're like, they still hungry. They still hungry. And I think that's like when you don't chase a position, like you don't chase like, oh, like I'm the president of this. Even the president of this is like, I'm still hungry, like, so I think it's kind of going on. Like if you don't chase positions in leadership, you're chasing goals. Yeah. Like, you chasing like, regardless, I want to leave an impact that even when you get a position, you're not. Yeah,
and it's like, okay, well, let's say you have a goal for yourself, and it's I have a 10-year goal, and I want to be the COO of my company. Let's say you get that goal in 3 years. It's like, okay, well, what's next?
Yeah.
Well, if you're chasing that leadership, it's like, okay, well, I'm just going to go out. My goal is I'm going to impact the lives of 10 people this year, or I'm going to mentor 3 people over the next 2-3 years. You can do that, make some change, and then you're like, okay, wow, I feel really great. I feel energized. What else am I going to do next?
Yeah. And also with that chasing the goals of impact and helping, a byproduct is during that pathway, you'll still get that leadership position because it's kind of entwined to that. And then you have, so it's like, I agree with that. Like, I feel like most, I'm seriously, I'm like really like, I don't know. Most times when I meet people that I look up to, I ask them, how did they get to where they were? And they literally will tell me, I wasn't chasing this where I'm at right now. I was just trying to do the next thing or do the next step.
Yep.
And I got better. You ask someone that was the president of the university or something, they're like, honestly, I didn't even know I was getting into higher education. I was just trying to go through grad, like all these different steps. And I think that's when it's like, when you realize they weren't chasing roles. They were just chasing like next steps or goals, or I want to just finish this degree, or I wanted to, or like in their current position, I just want to do such a good job that people not praise me, but you know what I mean? Like I'm known and then, opportunities come. So. Yeah,
like you said, it's a byproduct. It's like what you said.
Yeah. I feel like I just dropped my own gem on myself. Like that's what happens when I talk out loud these podcasts.
You need to tweet that one out.
There's a byproduct. Leadership is a byproduct of chasing excellence. Oh man, I actually want to quote that myself. How easy is it to allow arrogance? How easy is it to allow the arrogance of a position to cloud your mind? And that's Kev J.
Yeah, Kevin.
Okay.
He's out of ODU.
Yeah, you speak on that. Arrogance clouding your judgment.
I think that arrogance sometimes it comes about. I'm not even gonna lie to you. You walking around and you're like, man, you can't tell me nothing. I'm this, that, and the third. I've won this award. Y'all aren't doing. But it's like, again, you have to remember that you are a servant to the people.
Yeah.
Servant leadership. That's what's really important. There are many times where I could have, and I actually probably have said, do you know who I am?
Hey, you know when I say that, you know what happens to me? I get that who from like Galaxy to Galaxy. Like, do you know who I am? Who?
And I have gotten a who once, and then what happened was Ivan, it was actually at a convention. I don't remember if it was Hartford or Albany, but then I got on the podium and I was speaking and I announced myself. And I saw that person later. They're like, "Oh, that's who you." Yeah, that's.
That shit happens to me all the time, inadvertently when I meet people, and they were like, "Hey Phil, did you know who just met?" I'm like, "Who?"
Now that's embarrassing.
That's me.
That's like if it's like a university president or like a higher up or like someone that you should know who it is, and you're like, who is that?
No, I'm bad. No, I'm like so bad at that. Yo.
And I'm bad with that too. It's not because like I'm okay with names and I'm better with faces, but I just don't focus a lot of my attention on the celebrity of people and celebrities in general. It's like I met you, cool. What
Yeah.
else?
Yeah.
I'm a person too.
Well, I was saying the cloud and the judgment. I think with arrogance, and it's hit me a couple times, is that I gotten too big for my britches. That sounds like an old saying, but it's true. Is that I think one of the things about arrogance and clouding your judgment is that arrogance can also affect your empathy, and also I had to like sometimes dial it back and be like, of course that person don't know how to do this, but then I always got to step back and be like, yo, do you remember where you were? Do you remember how you started?
Yes.
Like
Yep.
you cannot, like your experience of certain things and knowledge of certain things is because of your experience. So really dial it back. Like not everything is universal knowledge. Not everything everyone knows how to do. And you know, sometimes that takes a little bit of like teaching people and just that expectation of like not everyone knows things.
Yeah.
Like
And
who you are, what to do, all that stuff.
it's that mentor mentee thing that you kind of have to have, and it's not, you don't have to like always take someone under your wing. Sometimes it's just as much as reaching back that one time or saying, if you have any questions, just feel free to let me know. I think that brings you down and reminds you, I was in that position one time.
Yeah.
How can I help this person so that they're not as clueless as I was?
Yeah. That job happens to me all the time. I was trying to think, I feel like that happened at nationals. I was like, who is this? This man was all these like people like, I'm a life member. I've been the district director and all this stuff. I'm like, who? Who is this?
Yeah,
because people walk around with those titles, and I'm like, I don't know who none of these people are. Should I? And I'd be looking around the room too. I'm looking at the room like, should I know who these people are? I was looking at you. I remember sometimes I was like, what am I supposed to be doing? I'm supposed to know who these people are.
And it's like some of the people, like, you know, the board of directors, like everyone should know their names, but honestly, I don't really know most of them. I know about a good half. And if I see you in person, I may remember your name, but I don't know what your face looks like. No. There's like, and it's like with, when I say, I don't want to say just them, but people that are in higher positions, like speaking from the outside, it's like, please remember that you were either elected into the position that you are in, or you were appointed by someone who was elected into the position. You are still serving first.
And also, I would also like to add, I think a lot of people don't realize how niche their communities are.
Yes.
For instance, I could be the man at, let's say, George Mason, but at a different university, who are you? Like, no one knows this. Like, or in Alpha, like, you know, I'm like, yo, you know how often they'd be like, if I went to a random white person and say, I am the district director of this Alpha, they'd be like, what is Alpha? I'm just saying, like everyone thinks in their own community that they are the man or woman or whatever, but don't realize that your community is probably not known to lots of people sometimes. Like where you think you're a high school star, you're the high school star, but go to another state. People don't even know your high school, what the name of. Like, so I think that needs to be humbled. It's like, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and someone said like there was a millionaire. I can't remember the person's name is a millionaire, but they only are known as being a millionaire in this podcast circle. But no one else knows them. Not everyone listens to podcasts. So I think you kind of have to have that humility that's like, you think you're the man in certain pockets, but not everyone knows your community. Not everyone listens to your, like if you're a rapper, not everyone listens to rap. I hate when people walk around and be like, do you know who I am? Like, do you realize that not everyone listens to your music? Like,
and take it politically.
That's arrogance. That's arrogance, yeah.
Like, even if you are, let's say, a politician, like let's say you're a different president than the one that's currently in office, if you're some other countries may not know or recognize who you are if you're visiting. And it's not just, on a smaller scale with organizations or the country's president sometimes will, like, let's say if Zimbabwe's leader, I don't know if they have a prime minister or president, were to come into my house right now, I'd be like, who is this man and why is he here? Or who is this man?
Exactly. I'm assuming he's important with all these bodyguards, but I still don't know who you are.
Yeah, exactly.
like exactly. And so I think I think the underlying thing about that is no matter how famous you think you are, have the humility to know that your experience in this world is not known to everybody.
Yep.
So that should cloud your judgment about arrogance. Like you walk in a room and thinking you're the man or woman or whatever. Not everyone knows that because not everyone knows what that leadership role is or what that organization is. And so I think it's where you have to have that balance of humility. That's like, I think about that all the time too, is like, as I walk in the room, I must assume that people don't know who I am in a positive way, like with a sense of humility. Like this is their first instinct of meeting Philip. One is the person and also representing the organization that I'm a leader of. So like also if you say, who am I? And I act all this, they can also say that Philip, one, is a trash human being who's terrible. And then they're also going to equate that everyone that comes from that organization, because I'm a leader in it, supposedly, is terrible. So I think that would be the arrogance lesson.
Yeah. Man,
this is crazy. You want to hit one more leadership question?
Yeah, let's get one more.
This is good, man. I might have to do another series, man. We might have to do a leadership sub-series. All right. This is not even a question. It was just imposter syndrome. I liked it. I had to hit that because that's something I can speak upon as a leader. It's not even a question. I guess it's a really strong statement. Have you ever felt that?
All the time.
Yeah.
I'll give this little backstory. One with Alpha, because I was in Alpha for a semester before I was voted as the president. So, and then after that, like a couple weeks later, I'm planning a retreat. You know, we're talking about budgets, we're talking about intake, we're talking about fundraisers, and I'm just like, I haven't done any of this before, but I feel like, okay, well, I'm going to saddle up, get this work done. Hopefully no one recognizes my faults or what I'm missing. And if not, I'm good. I'm gonna keep pushing. And even like on the job at work, it's like, okay, like after training, what am I actually supposed to be doing?
Yes.
And you don't want to ask too many questions because you're like, okay, how did this guy get hired?
Yes.
And you don't want to make it seem like, you know, you got it all under control, because then you may get a lot more work thrown at you. So it's like, now I'm drowning in work. So yeah, you don't want to get outed as a fraud. That's the main thing with imposter syndrome. If you don't know, it's like you're doubting your accomplishments, your work, and you have a fear of being exposed as a fraud. Yeah,
which is not true. And what I've learned, and I did a little article on it, but it's it disproportionately affects minorities and marginalized groups.
Yes,
women and women and people of color, you know, both. And it's also high achievers, you know, like Maya Angelou said, like, you know, people are going to find out what I've learned, even studying this phenomenon, because I've experienced it myself, is that I have to keep on grounding myself and say, with this imposter syndrome, I am not a fraud, because if I was a fraud based on straight Spock, like I'm going to straight Spock this, like no feelings at all. I would not be in this position if I did not deserve to be.
Correct.
The way I do that is I say, do I meet the basic criteria to be in this position? Check, 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 check. I am not a fraud. And so I think that's a lot of things we got to work on, is that, and that's also rewarding yourself. Like,
yes.
And there was all these exercises to do. Like what you do is you look at the job description and say, okay, I'm not a fraud because when I look at this thing on a piece of paper, I fulfill what they need. I am qualified. Also, another thing that he says a good exercise, what I'd use for myself, is have your own like brag sheet, which is every time I do accomplishment, I log it in a Word document, a live Google document. So when someone says like, I don't belong here, I look at it and say, oh no, I just did this. I accomplished these things. It reaffirms me. And it's not for bragging. It's to reaffirm that hard work does lend you opportunities. Therefore, the hard work that you did to get that position, whether you're asking questions or not, you deserve to be there because you worked hard. So it's almost like combating that negative person saying, you don't belong here, you're a fraud. No, I do. I belong here. See this? And you have to like combat that. it's a
Yeah.
syndrome. It really does feel like a syndrome. It feels like you're going to be, someone's randomly going to say, aha, I knew it. Aha, I knew it. You weren't supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Which is funny because no one really says, haha, I knew you weren't supposed to be here. Unless you're really trash,
Yeah.
but then you wouldn't have got there. So it's crazy. But the mind is so crazy. The mind works. And I think leaders get that a lot, because what I've learned is that as you level up, I was thinking about that as a syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
I met people I look up to and they say they don't feel like they belong there.
Yep. All the time.
Like, I was like, yep. As the person below them, I'm like, no, but like I saw you do this, this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, oh, you're like, it's like you can't see it in your own brain.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't see it. Like other people can see that you're not a fraud.
Yeah.
It's like you telling yourself a fraud, but like as a leader, you're like, wow, like people, I was like, the funniest thing about that whole imposter syndrome is not me internally, is that when I've heard about this or heard about people I look up to, such as you as a young leader,
mm-hmm.
or people I look up to, is that people I look up to felt it too. And it's crazy. They felt it as they progressed.
Yeah.
Like, why? Why do we do that in general? And I think it's what I've noticed too is I think it's overtly negative messages that we've taught ourselves or society's taught us that makes us think like, normally people like you don't belong here.
Mm-hmm.
So that when you get there, you're like, I've heard or seen that normally people like me don't belong here. So therefore I'm the fraud here.
Yeah. And I think that just comes from a lot of times how we talk to ourselves as people. And it's not just a certain group, but a lot of people are very hard on themselves, but we need to speak more kindly to ourselves, because that really impacts our mental health, and it plays into things like imposter syndrome, your anxiety levels, your depression, things like that. We really need to be focused on how we are communicating with ourselves. I think I was talking to one of my neos a few months back, and he does struggle with some of this stuff. And I was just like, well, something that you could do just like to help you each day, write yourself like notes on sticky notes and put them like on your mirror, put them in a place that you're going to see throughout the day to give you some encouragement. Like you said, write down your achievements. That's a really good one. I'm going to take that from you, actually. Just doing that can really help you feel like you belong, even though you already belonged in the first place.
Yes, that's the key word. You already belong there in the first place, but you need to like almost take the emotion out of it and tangibly prove, like show that proof. And like I said, like for your example, right? You're saying, I don't know, budgets, all that, but why would someone vote you to be president?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. That's like be wrong. Like what was the criteria? Did you earn the presidency? Not I deserve, like, did you earn, like, did you get voted by? And I always say this, like, by process. Did you do it by process? So yeah, you got voted. Your peers did the process, elected and voted you as president. Therefore, really, regardless if this is a new role, you by law or the bylaw, you in that position. Yep. And so I thought about that too. Like, if I did not deserve to be in a position like where I had the imposter syndrome, I would not have gotten hired. Yep. I went through a process. They interviewed me. They asked me questions. They looked at my resume. If I was not qualified at any of those points through the process, I wouldn't have got the job. So like, that's kind of like how you kind of like, for me, that's how I really try to combat imposter syndrome. Now, at the same time, it also has to feel like, well, then now that I'm here, I also had to like show up and work hard and like really, really combat that with my actions.
Yeah. Proving to them why you were their pick.
That was it. Yeah. I'm going to show why it was a good choice. Well, that was great. I lied. This is not I told you there's no. So there's a part called shot for shot. I mean, obviously I'm sipping a little something, but you get to ask me any random question. I get to ask you any random question. You want to go first? I'll go first.
I'll go first.
Okay.
What is the best part of parenting?
All right, so I ain't gonna lie. Today, man, my kids, this pandemic, man, I swear to God, God has tested me. but you know it. I got my close friends. Quentin's one of them on the Instagram. Shout out to my wife. Hashtag prayers for Maggie. Nothing's wrong. She's just married to me. I won. I won in life because I have too many clones. And you know this. Like, I have two boys, two just wild and crazy boys. And I think one of the coolest parts about parenthood is that it's like almost, and you know, God's plan, God's thing. It's like, I feel like when you have kids, it's God's opportunity to say, one, like, you get a chance to like do better, whatever better is. Like, you get to like at least try.
Yeah.
Try with someone else to do better and be better. Every parent's gonna say it. Like, I want you to grow up and be better than me. It's legit. Like, you literally look at two human beings and say, I want them to be better than me. Whatever my flaws are, whatever my insecurities are, whatever I'm not good at, I just hope to God that my kids are better than me and grow up. So that's cool. And I ain't gonna lie, with two boys, I have two life insurance homies. So two ways. One, I'm investing in my kids so that if all fails, I'm living in their basement or their attic, wherever they want to put me, and they take care of me. I got it. I got those people. But two, it's like, I see as they get older, that I will have a young person to, one, I can teach and all that, but it does flip. I've seen it. I've seen it with older parents. Like, they have companionship of some sort with their kids.
Yeah.
And obviously it's a different role, and I always say I'm always going to be the parent, but I've seen where the relationship molds and they have like legit a friendship or a kinship with their children. And that's pretty dope. Like, I'm gonna have like two dudes, like two little guys, regardless, that just I don't know, man. You see my boys. I feel like Bennett is like a half of me in some ways, and my son Miles is one way. And it's just like, the Burke bully. Yeah. Yo, he was doing that the other day. They made me clap my face the other day, like today, for no reason. That joke hurt. Like, I was like, why are you doing this? He's like, I'm strong. What are you doing? But I think that's what it is. I think a lot of parents, when they want to have kids, is there opportunity to really try to be better. And I think a lot of it too is like everything that I was not good at or things that like I need to work on. I tell people this all the time. Whatever you need to work on in life, kids don't make it easier. They exacerbate it, and they turn a mirror on you and say, oh, you're bad with this, or you're insecure with this, or you're not this. Here's some kids, and you got to work on it, or it's gonna roll over. So I don't know, kids, man. Kids is wild, man. I ain't gonna lie though. Don't have kids out there, everyone. This is Alpha. What's it called? Project Alpha. Hey, don't have kids if you don't want to have kids.
Don't have kids until you're ready to have kids.
And also, additionally, don't have kids if you don't want them.
Yeah.
Oh man, because kids is work. I'm telling you, man, kids is work. But I love them so much. And as I said, they're crazy. All right, I got one for you.
All right.
So, okay. You get $1 million, right? Congratulations. But you have to use this $1 million straight up to buy a home.
Okay.
Go into a house. Okay. And this is, I asked someone the other day, anywhere in Virginia. So we're going to keep it to Virginia. So you got $1 million to buy a home anywhere in Virginia. Keep in mind, it's only $1 million. So, and you have to buy it on a house. Where in Virginia are you buying a home, and why in that place with $1 million?
Ooh. Am I at my current age in life?
Is that what now?
Am I at my current age in life?
Yeah, right now. Like, okay, let's do that. That's good. That's a good follow-up. I don't know. I was thinking about that. Like, yeah, I just dumped $1 million, but it's kind of like the stipulations. You can't buy a car or not. You have to buy the house. You have to, or whatever. You have to live there. Here's another stipulation. You have to live there for at least, because you can buy a house and rent it out. So I know. Yeah. No, you have to buy the house and live there for 5 years.
I'm gonna say Richmond. And I say Richmond because Richmond it's a big enough city for me. I'm not really one that likes really big cities like DC, Northern Virginia. It's really a lot for me that I don't like. I don't like traffic. Richmond doesn't have a lot of traffic. It's growing. It has a good population of minority, blacks, black people in the area. For me at my current age in life, there's a good young population as well. Schools, if I were to settle down, schools in the area aren't, they're not terrible. All of them. um, yeah, so I'd say Richmond or one of the surrounding Richmond counties, Chesterfield, Henrico, maybe.
$1 million can give you some good stuff too. That's a good
Yeah, in Richmond, $1 million will get you pretty far. Like Northern Virginia, depending on what county you're in, you might have half of a house.
You'll get a closet, man. That's so crazy, man. Different markets.
I was looking at renting at one point. I was like, y'all want me to pay $1,100 for this? I have half of a kitchen. What is this? Yeah, so.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
That's a good one.
That's a good question. So now we have done a full episode. I think we're going to do it again. I have to. Yeah. I don't know. I think I told you I'm going to schedule this out. I think this is so good. I might drop this on Wednesday just because this is really good stuff. And I'm really excited about leadership and what we talked about today. Mm-hmm. So for the listeners, this is the part of the show I call shout outs and plugs, meaning you get to shout out anything you want to shout out and plug things where people can follow you or whatever you're working on. And so the stage is set, shout outs and plugs.
Shout out to me for helping me come this far in life. No, I'll just plug my Instagram and Twitter. My Instagram is Quentin_Can, QUENTIN_CAN. My Twitter is Q_CAN_. Also shout out to my line brother. He actually just started his business. He announced that on Friday, I believe. So it's called studio.wide on Instagram. So he does graphic design is what he does as a profession. So he does a lot of photography for events. He has, Total Wine, he not caters, but that doesn't photography work for them, digital design, things like that. So shout out to my LB. That's
great. Well, that's amazing. I'm about to put that in the show notes. I have to remember. But, but follow up with this good brother, man. This has been a great episode. I think we kind of went.
I loved it.
This is great. We went all over the map on. I think that this new format, well, not new format, but we might have to do another leadership part 2, young leadership part 2, where we just solicit questions because the listeners, all the people, they sent some really good questions and it got us thinking about how we view leadership and a different topic. And then you're quite the. I don't know. Maybe I think you might have a future in podcasting yourself.
And I've thought about it.
hey, a little something. But thank you so much, Quentin, for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for sharing your knowledge. And like I said, I may be quite older than you. I'm not going to do age, but I think that, like I said, the maturity, the age, the wisdom that you shared. I already knew from day one that you are going to take over the world, and I'm going to stunt and act like I know you while you go there, because you're doing great things and you're just really doing having an impact on multiple communities. And I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share that with my listeners, my little platform here. But please follow with this good brother on all his platforms. Please follow his sister's podcast. I haven't subscribed or listened yet, but if she's connected to this dude, I already know it's fire. It's already going to get it. I'm going to subscribe and just give her 5-star rating just because off GP. Yeah. I feel like just saying GP. But, just please, follow those platforms. And if you like this episode, please like and subscribe Positive Philter on all the platforms. If you have a voicemail for the podcast, it's 571-336-6560. That's 571-336-6560. Just please keep on sharing these positive messages. We're learning, we're growing, and this is a great podcast. I'm talking about myself, but also this is a great people that I have on these podcasts. So please follow up with all my guests and get to know them as well, because I wouldn't have people on my podcast that I don't think highly of, and I think that you should connect with them too as well. So Have a good day. Thank you, listeners, and we're out. Thank you for listening to Positive Philter, a podcast that focuses on family, friends, career, with a little self-help along the way. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with your family and friends, and like the Facebook page, Spreading Positivity Movement. Thanks for listening.